So, Lance, we wish you long life for your mom's yahrzeit. If you give us her Hebrew name and so we can have your mom in mind.
Yeah, thanks. My mom's name is Itamasha, but Aaron Halevi.
Okay,
She passed away 5 years ago.
5 years ago. I remember actually. I remember that. I can't believe it's been 5 years. Sorry, Lance. My condolences. But what was your mom's English name, if you don't mind me asking? You told me once before.
Ifli,
That's right.
Ifli,
That's right.
Ifli Marcia. Yeah,
Okay, so Kevin, with that in mind, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I wish you long life and only simchas, only
thank you.
yes. Okay, so halacha is about davening um, in a shul. So a shul, we have to. I know this was. I actually even heard something today in the one shul I was at, but that I can just add to what what was said. So one should refrain from discussing mundane activities like business deals and what and opportunities to get into the share market and get a good stock, get a good share, and also more importantly, to not answer one's phone and talk in shul as if like it's a normal public place, lahavdil. And that has a specific type of reverence and kedusha and shchina. It's Hashem's house. So we have to, I know, always talking to myself, we have to be cognizant of that. And also, if you go into shul, put your phone, either switch your phone off or put it onto aircraft mode. So uh, you won't hear anything. So, and also not eating and drinking, especially not drinking alcohol in a shul where one might get lightheaded and be a bit lax in one's covered for the place. And slightly different last point actually heard today is if there's a Torah reading going on and someone is late, they shouldn't actually enter the shul. They should wait till the end of the aliyah, enter the shul. And it also, he even said today, one shouldn't even put tefillin on if one's late during the laning. On let's say a weekday shachrit on a Monday, or Thursday, or a Rosh Chodesh. Uh, one shouldn't even do that during Torah reading in a shul.
Okay, makes sense. Gavin's disappeared. Gavin's back on. Just hang on. Gav,
Yeah, sorry, we've got this intermittent problem. We're trying to resolve it, but it's not resolved yet. I
when
can
I
drop in any
when I said
anytime.
Gavin can take a break till Aiden comes back, I meant Simpson, not Stoller. I know how excited you were the minute you heard that you clicked off. Then the champagne cork went.
You know what? If I see a loophole, I always go for it, you know me.
Good for you. Uh, all right.
Yeah.
Kevin, that's very
Not just you.
being mad. Everybody. Yeah. Um, okay, well, yeah, it's the 3 weeks, so if this makes you miserable to learn with me, goal achieved. All right. Um, just I want Lance, basically, I just want to give you a quick indication of what you missed. Is the we were obviously discussing this issue with the Abaya and Rabbah. And the first thing we wanted to know is, where do you see more culpability for being exiled when you're going in a downward motion and what not an upward motion? And obviously it's in Bamidbar chapter 35 verse 23, because it said, and he caused the object to fall down upon him, and he died. And he's not sentenced to exile unless it fell in the way things customarily fall. So what do you mean to fall on upon him? Obviously as a result of a downward motion of gravity. So one of the things to bear in mind in Hilsa Rotseach, chapter 6, verse 12, is that the Rambam, Maimonides, said, look, it's obviously common for descending objects to cause damage. because it's the nature of heavy objects to fall quickly, and it's a person's responsibility to be especially vigilant to see that everything in its proper order during the descent. And you go to the city of exile for not exercising greater caution. But in an upward motion, there is liability. These are terms known as the CLO, general principles. If a person is known to push an object um, to which his body weight can't handle, he's certainly going to go to the city of exile in that regard. There's no question. If it's deemed to be almost negligent on the point of deliberate, he might not even be protected from the Goel Adam and not even go to exile in that way.
Okay.
So that could be another.
Okay. Okay. No problem.
Arth, hello.
Yeah,
Okay, can I?
Can't you mute him?
Yeah, I'm going to. So, Lance, what you missed out there was generally there is that culpability. So obviously Shmuel says there is a biblical derivative, and most biblical derivatives are based not only on scriptural sourcing, which supersedes logic, but often based on logic. How do we know this? If you remember when we learned Bava, we learned it in the order of probability of what is likely to befall a person regarding damages. So the Gemara brings the brisa, Lance, just to put you in the picture. And it said if you go 5 verses before in Bamidbar chapter 35, but not verse 23, but verse 15, which is 8 verses before, there are two different instances where you don't get to go to the city of exile. The one in that source in Bamidbar, where it says if a killing happened bishgaga, which means inadvertently. And the second exclusion from exile is in Devarim chapter 19, verse 4, where the term uses bivli da'at, which means without awareness. Now, there are two schools of thought. So I'm going to test, let's see. Lance has got enough pressure at the moment with his mom. Kevin, for what two reasons do you not go to the city of exile?
If it's deliberate and someone actually hated, actually said this an upcoming parashot, if someone actually had an enemy that they wanted to take them out, and let's say it possibly could have been not be seen, the actual act may not have been seen as deliberate. It will be seen as deliberate because the guy actually wanted to eliminate this person. So if it's a
Excellent.
deliberate act, I don't know if that's okay.
Excellent. So
And
Kevin,
if there was
you are
warned,
correct.
let's say, and it's if there was a warning possibly, and the guy was negligent. I don't know if negligence, but negligence is beshogeg also.
So
Whereas you say
one
if
out
it's
of two
so
isn't
it's
bad. 1 out of 2 isn't bad. So Kevin hit on a good point. There are 4 degrees, Lance, of culpability. Okay. The one is a complete accident, an oines, where what happens is that the minute anybody dies, Lance, you run to the city of refuge before the relatives clock you. That's a fact. You go there. Then the court will appoint a protection to get you to the court case, and the Goel Adam are not allowed to touch you until the court case has concluded with your verdict. So you're under protection, and if any of the Goel Adam try and attack this person until the court case has established the matter, they in fact are liable to the death penalty like they would any other person. So for a complete accident, a complete oines, the person does not go to the city of refuge because they don't need refuge from the Goel Adam, and it's deemed a complete accident. Then there is some degree of negligence at which exile is required. In other words, it's certainly not bordering on deliberate. It's not gross negligence, but there is a degree of negligence at bad luck. And we don't believe in bad luck. So we're saying that obviously, if it happened on the Kohen Gadol's watch, he bears a certain amount of culpability. The inadvertent killer does, as well as the victim, because in fact, in a previous lifetime, or in that lifetime, he was due to get the death penalty and he didn't, and therefore it was divine ordination. But the person that happens to be the instrument of the delivery is held accountable because your soul determines whether or not you're going to be a messenger for good or for harm. So where you go to the city of exile is where there is negligence, but it's not grossly negligent. At the points where it's grossly negligent, bordering on deliberate, you don't go to the city of exile because it provides two things, the city of exile. What two things does it provide, Gavin?
It provides protection whilst you're inside. And
Excellent. The
the
Goal
Gadol guys,
from the victim's relatives.
yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, I've got brain fog. Yeah, I can't pronounce it, but the guy Adam, whatever you call him, he's they can't even enter. They can't go in at all. They can't touch him. So that's the one protection. And then they protected there until such time as they go to the case. And I mean,
No.
until
So the
such time as the
case has
court
been, we're saying where somebody is negligent on
already
a city.
okay, so it's already been determined. Yeah,
Correct.
then he has to stay there until the Kohen Gadol.
But what's the other benefit of being in the city of refuge? You hit on the nail on the head on that one. That was
Yeah,
excellent.
I'm trying to think. I know that's why I'm trying to give you anything else but what you want because I can't remember it. I'm trying to think.
That's
The
okay.
benefit is that I'm so brain fog, but I'm trying.
Can I give
I am
you,
hearing you.
what is the spiritual reason? Let me give you a reasonable clue. What's the spiritual?
Because yeah, it's obviously because it's to purify. It's a
Correct.
spiritual purification because you're going through. It's like a cleansing process.
Absolutely. You're
It's
going through
doing.
hell.
It's
You,
doing.
your
Yeah.
life's been put onto pause and you're going equivalent to a big jail. And therefore it's a kapora, it's an atonement because it's a heavy pain.
Kapora, that's what I was thinking of. Sorry, I couldn't think of it, but you did help me to get to at least the other part.
But you
The
got to
English
both
version.
parts. There was a
Yeah, I
practical
wanted to say
aspect and a
Kapora. I couldn't
spiritual
think of
aspect. So Lance, so that's for, and then for gross negligence, you don't get the kapora, the atonement, because it's bordering on the deliberate, nor do you get the protection. And then one of the punishments spiritually is you get a premature death and you get spiritually punished in the next world. So how's the premature death going to come? At the hands of the victim's relatives. You're not going to get any of that protection. And then obviously for a deliberate murderer, they get executed. All right, so guys, now that you see the spectrum, you can understand Abaya and Rabbah. Now there is an error in the Schottenstein Gemara. It says Abaya and Rabbah. Often there is a case with Abaya and Rabbah, but in this case it's Abaya and Rabbah. Okay, Rabbi Cohen made it clear. And we also learned, I asked Rabbi Cohen a question which added wonderful clarity. So we'll get to that now. So, this Bishka guy that's inadvertently, that we learn in a brisa, what does this exclude? One who kills deliberately. Okay. What does deliberately mean? You have full awareness of your crime and you have a conscious disregard for the law. In other words, you know it's immoral and you know it's illegal. So, what's the problem with this, Lance? Why would you even think that you get to go to the city of exile for a deliberate murder? What could even make you think that? Why mention the obvious? What's your thoughts on that? Because that's what the Bryce is saying. It's saying, at the end of the day, if you want to say there's a case of inadvertently, Bishgaga, and what is it contrasting with? A deliberate murderer. Why would it be necessary to bring that up? What happens to a deliberate murderer, Lance?
Well, look, he could go there anyway because there might not be witnesses and stuff, and he might think he's got a way out.
Excellent, excellent. So Lance is on the page of Tosfot. So Tosfot said you could think it's a reasonable assumption. Why? Because we used the example the other day when you weren't there that a man murders another man because he happens to do it at a coffee shop where he knows that a father and a son frequent together, and therefore he knows that two relatives can't testify together, and therefore he's technically off the hook. Or he doesn't say to the victim, I'm going to kill you. He has enmity towards his victim because the victim had sexual relations with his wife, adultery with his wife, and stole half his business. So he might stab him and not say, I'm going to stab you, at which case there is no hazroah, there's no formalized warning. So you're thinking maybe in that case, it's possible that we give the person exile. Okay, it's possible in the basis because it does provide some sort of a kapara, and it's certainly not pleasant. It's like hell on earth. So we could
Is it
say
a
that,
temporary,
yeah.
is it a temporary reprieve there? Because he does the murder because he thinks he'll get off the hook, and he goes there, and because of a technicality, he gets off. But the relatives still want to kill him. So does he get protection then?
So that's exactly the point, is that Tosfot would say, and the Brisa would say, if you come to that conclusion that it's some sort of an atonement, and further to which it's some sort of protection, you got another thing coming. Exactly for the reason that Lon said, the Brisa said, it can't be. In the case of a deliberate murderer who knows the law and who did it on purpose, it's very different to negligence, and therefore they don't deserve atonement. And if they do it based on a technicality that they're going to get off, they don't deserve protection by going to the city of refuge, and they're susceptible to be killed. And he has to watch with vigilance for the rest of his life because he's going to be killed by one of the victim's relatives, or he's going to have to leave the city. But either way, spiritually, the full weight of consequences going to bear upon him. So the Gemara
If
says,
the
since you
victim's
know, yeah, Lance?
if the victim's relative happens to kill him, does that victim's relative then become liable for a death sentence? Is it
Okay,
considered
so that's
murder?
a completely different question. We'll answer that, but let's let's just stick to the topic at hand, and that is, why would you contrast the state of without awareness in comparison to a deliberate murderer? What makes you think that you'd have to contrast them? Because it's an obvious thing, exactly as Lance said, that a deliberate murderer is liable to execution. So why even bring it up? So before we discuss why to bring it up, because this Tosfot thing Lance brought up, and he, by his own thought process, answered it exactly the way Tosfot did. So Lance, well done there. So the thing of it is that this is an argument that goes between Rabbah and Abaya. So Abaya's position is that it could be referring to a completely different issue. They both agree. They're only on different sides of the issue. What is this thing of Bishgaga and of a state of inadvertently? It's different because you don't go to the city of refuge because according to a buyer, it's one who thinks that a crime is permitted. And therefore, because he thinks the crime is permitted, then it's equivalent to one who committed a crime without almost a state of understanding, and therefore inadvertently he does not go to exile on that basis. In other words, Abaya is saying to Rabbah, we are very merciful on this guy because what he did do is commit a crime, but he didn't know it was a crime. And you could say that how's such a thing possible? We're just waiting for Gavin. Uh, Lance, could you give me two examples of where you think it would be possible?
No.
All right, so I'll give you two simple examples. It says you mas yumas for breaking Shabbos. You chayiv misa, meaning that what's the sentence for somebody that broke Shabbos?
Hilul Shabbos.
Yeah, Lance, somebody that broke Shabbos on purpose, what they're liable to?
Get stoned.
Yes. So the thing of it is, this person, for example, maybe maybe he thinks he's going to be the next Pinchas, and maybe he's a little bit simple, or he just thinks that he's going to make sure that this bad habit of breaking Shabbos stops. So like a Slavchat. And therefore, Slavchat was put to death because he killed, well, he himself broke Shabbos. And therefore he was put to death. But say this person is reading the Torah literally without the oral Torah knowing there's a Sanhedrin. So he thinks it's his duty to put this person to death. So did he think he was committing a crime? Yes or no? Lance? Lance, can you
No.
hear me?
I'm not following you.
So
If it's literal, no.
this is what we're
Then
saying.
he's doing
I'm
the
going
right
to give you
thing.
two, exactly as Kevin said. I'm going to give you two examples. Abaya's argument to Rabbah is saying, look, we don't send somebody to the city of refuge if they committed a crime which they didn't realize was an Avera. So what we went through is there are two different things. It's called actus reus and mens rea, which means the actual act itself, and the other one, the awareness that it's a crime. So somebody that kills another Jew for breaking Shabbos, and he thinks he's doing a mitzvah, and he doesn't realize it's up to the Sanhedrin to do it. In his mind, he's committed no avera, even though this person is dead. So yes, did he have actus reus, meaning commit the murder? Yes, but he didn't have mens rea, which is back to which is basically intent to commit a crime. Okay, and on that basis, Abaya is saying that the person can not be sent to the city of refuge because he holds it's bordering on accidental based on ignorance. Rabbah is coming from the opinion that ignorance is no excuse. You know, we learn in davening on Yom Kippur that if you stay in ignorance, you're still liable for the chait, for the sin. And therefore, ignorance is no excuse. You have to learn halachas, etc. So, Rabbah is of the opinion that this is close to deliberate. And whether or not you had your own freak show going on your head to think you were going to be the next Pinchas to put somebody to death, you had no rights to do it. And therefore, it wasn't negligence. This is bordering on almost murder. And therefore, you don't go to the city of exile because you don't get the protection or the refuge from the Goel Adam. So they are both saying that this person is not susceptible to the city of exile, but Abaya is saying he's not because it was bordering on ignorance and accidental, and it wasn't. He didn't actually understand what he was doing is wrong, even though he committed the crime. And Rabbah is saying ignorance is no excuse, and it's bordering on deliberate because it wasn't negligence. Do you see that?
You don't accidentally kill somebody. If you're Nicaraguans, you don't kill anybody because you think it's the right thing to do. I mean,
You're 100% right in that when we learned this the other day, in this first example, we understood Rabbah's point of view. In the second example, we actually understood Abaya's point of view. So the entire hypothesis of the Gemara always goes that you're going to have an inclination to go with one of the opinions. And the entire point of the Gemara is to try and stretch you to see it from another point of view, to see both sides. You might still come to the same conclusion, but it has to stretch you to see that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So to stretch you, Lance, we're going to use a different example instead of somebody that kills somebody for breaking Shabbos, where they don't think it's what they did as an Avera, they think what they did as a mitzvah. If you take a look at Pinchas, before Hashem told him that Pinchas would be a Cohen, and he did a mitzvah, if you just looked at it and it was an anomaly, do you not think that that person would have been a deliberate killer? Unless you had an exception from Hashem, yes or no? Yes. And we both would have, but in that case, no. So this person, according to Rabbah, is almost exactly as long says a deliberate killer, and that's why he doesn't get to the city of refuge, because he doesn't deserve the protection. And as far as Abaya is concerned, this person thought he was doing a mitzvah. Yes, he did commit the act of murder, but his intent, his criminal intent was not there. So let's just use a modern example, Lance, and you'll be able to understand this a little bit better. The modern example is as follows. I sent to everybody this legal case in Canada with legislation made, medical assistance in dying. And what the Canadian government are doing is they're trying to get rid of people that will cost them money to keep alive. It's all about the money. Always follow the money. And they're saying if you're too old or you're in a state where you're not having quality of life, you can go for euthanasia. And not only is it legal, but you'll get government subsidized on it. Okay? Now, if somebody's been practicing, now how far do you stretch it, Lance? Because this case has been suspended, the part of the mental illness, to 2027. Why? Because people were choosing and electing to die if they suffered from severe depression, or they suffered from schizophrenia, or they were living hell on earth from a mental perspective. And therefore, the legislation allowed for that, and then everybody suddenly had mental illness because they didn't want to push through life. So they've had to reassess the situation. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. And therefore, if you were a doctor practicing in Canada, where your patient was in a state where they were suffering from cancer, and you wanted to not only withhold the chemotherapy, but give morphine because this was the person's wishes. It's not a crime in Canada, but you go to the UK and it is a crime. So now it's exactly the same case. Now we can see it from Abaya's point of view that this person had no criminal intent, but yet they were going to end this person prematurely. Do you get what I'm saying? So he said the person, based on the legislation, and halacha is legislation, deserves some sort of protection. Let's just go on quickly. And then this next case is this case of Bishka. So that was Bishkaga in a state of unawareness. Now there's Bavli Da'at. Sorry, Bishkaga is inadvertently. Now this Bavli Da'at is without awareness. And it says again, it excludes one who murders intentionally. So then the question comes up again. Well, what do you mean it murders intentionally? We know that person gets the death penalty. So the Gemara says, let's clear this up. What we mean is this person intended to kill an animal. He was in the forests of New Jersey, and they often in winter go there hunting. But unfortunately, when the person moved in the snow with a jacket, he looked like a deer, and it was a human, and he mistakenly killed a human being. Okay? Or one who intended to kill a kutat, and it was a non-Jewish tribe. It was brought by the Syrian king during the latter days of the first temple. They settled in Samaria, and they were there to replace the 10 tribes of Israel. So it's forbidden to kill them because you don't want to kill anybody. But the Jewish court certainly wouldn't have killed a Jew for killing one of the non-Jews, I promise you. So he thinks he killed a Kutat, but instead he killed an Israelite. Or one who intended to kill a non-viable infant, but killed a fully developed infant. So what do we mean in terms of a non-developed infant? Lance, today somebody can be born prematurely and they go on an incubator and get life support, and they can go to full term even if the child has to be delivered via cesarean section early. In those days, it might not have been the case, and they thought it might have formed jeopardy to the mother, or in any case, they wanted to expel the fetus because they saw non-viability. But it turned out that the fetus, in fact, miraculously developed at quite an advanced stage where it didn't automatically mean up to 8 months, and therefore they killed a fully viable infant instead of a non-sustainable fetus. So in all these cases, though he intended to kill, that's for sure, the killing which he actually committed was unintentional. So again, there's an argument with Abaya and Rabbah, and Abaya turns around and says, it wasn't the intent for him to actually commit what you call halachic murder, and therefore he should get off the hook. And Rabbah turns around and says it doesn't matter because murder is murder. So in other words, you had actus rea and mens rea, meaning both the intent and the criminal act. Why does Rabbah say you've got the intent? Because you intended to kill, you just didn't get your outcome in understanding exactly what you killed. And my argument to Rav Simcha Steinhauer, and Lance, you'll share this, as I said, this doesn't make any sense because Rav Simcha Steinhauer mentioned this because note number 9 said it's no way lessened by the fact that the killing he intended was not subject to execution by the court. Even when intending to kill an animal which is permissible, a person must be aware of the possibility of striking a human, and therefore, if he does kill a human, he's not classified as a shoigeg, inadvertent but close to deliberate. My argument is since you're halachically allowed to kill an animal and you kill a human, why in that case should you be convicted if in fact you're halachically allowed to kill an animal? It's one thing if you kill an Israelite, you miss that Israelite and your bullet hits another Israelite, because either way, you're not allowed to kill an Israelite. It's a capital offense. But this case, with respect, you're killing an animal and you happen to kill a person. So I said to Rabbi Cohen, I don't agree with Rav Simcha Steinhauer's synopsis on Rabbah. There has to be more to it than that. And Rabbi Ran Cohen said there is. And this was what was more to it, is that in a case, the default position, Rabbi Cohen said, is neutral. In other words, if I go to a public place and I do not have a firearm, but I have an axe, and that axe is in a good condition, and the axe head for some reason flies off and kills somebody, and it's not loose because you have to check it before, otherwise that's gross negligence. But there's an accident, or you chop a tree and a wood chip hits somebody in the eye, and they lose their eye, and then they have a hemorrhage. For that, the person goes to exile. So through no fault of your own, the negligence is that you're not allowed to do any activity in a public place where there could be another Jew. He said it doesn't mean you're negligent that you haven't checked your equipment, because that is gross negligence at which you wouldn't be given protection in exile. So the default position is if you're given exile in a case of non-negligence, but you shouldn't even be doing anything that could possibly go wrong if there's another Jew in the public area, because they're entitled to be there, and you've got to assume something's going wrong, that's enough to create negligence. Gross negligence is not checking your equipment. And therefore, he was saying Rabbah's opinion is the reason why he ends up not getting the protection by going to exile is because if you intended to kill an animal with a firearm in a place where other people are allowed to be, that, according to Rabbah, is gross negligence. Because even if you did something that you checked your equipment and somebody died, but your axe happened to kill somebody, but you checked it before, for losing a life, your life is taken in terms of freedom. That's it. So anything more than that is negligence to the degree that it's grossly deliberate, bordering on deliberate, and you're not entitled to protection from exile. And that explained Rabbah's position better than I learned it from Rav Simcha in Art School. Just thought I'd share that with you. Does that make sense, guys? And according,
but now would they be put to death?
No.
They won't have protection of the city, but will and obviously the girl Adam, whatever you call him, them or whatever, can go after him and kill him. But let's say no one kills him, does he still go to court and does he still get put to death? If he kills the animal instead, if he targets,
it wasn't.
If he's trying to kill an animal and
no,
he accidentally kills.
No, because that's not deliberate. Deliberate means that you have to say, I intend to kill this person. You have to be warned. You have to have 2 witnesses. This was not deliberate. Anybody that kills an animal is generally not intending to kill a human. They might not deserve protection, but they don't deserve a guaranteed put to death. And the fact that the Goel Adam might be susceptible to reach him is enough of an atonement, providing he's sorry.
Yeah.
If I were him, I'd get out of court. I'd get out.
So that's what I was checking. All right, cool.
Yeah. Because it wasn't, listen, he didn't intend to kill an Israelite. He didn't intend, whether it was a non-Jew, that the Sanhedrin would not put him to death. We just learned that if he killed a Kutat instead of an Israelite, they certainly wouldn't condone it, but they're not going to, the Sanhedrin, put him to death, which means there's no death penalty. Definitely even more so for an animal, and definitely the same when it regards a non-viable fetus and it happens to be viable. But his life's at risk, and at best he'll come out alive, but he'll lose the quality of his life for decades, maybe. Maybe. So now all I'm saying is with Rabbi Cohen, I understand it as a better position of default as opposed to Rav Simcha Steinhauer. That when a life is lost, you go to exile, even if you weren't negligent. The fact that you were doing anything where there was another person is considered sufficient negligence but it's not like you never checked your equipment. So certainly, Gavin, when you're shooting a gun, where your intention is to kill, but it's misdirected, you don't deserve protection of exile. That's Rabbah's opinion. Abaya said you didn't mean to, so you should be getting. You shouldn't go to exile. It's not your fault, and therefore you're not killed by the Goel Adam in terms of susceptibility. All right, guys, I think that summarizes everything for you.
Yeah, thanks. Just missed a little bit, but otherwise good. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Long
Okay,
life,
bye.
Lawrence.
Cheers.